Here are 10 things that every traveler needs to know about the overhead bin space on a plane. I'll also be sharing some hacks to help you get the space that you need on your next flight. The first thing that every traveler needs to know about the overhead bin space on a plane is that this space is meant for a larger carry-on bag or a rolling suitcase, not your personal item backpack or any personal items in general. On most flights with major airlines, passengers are allowed to bring one larger carry-on suitcase or bag, as well as one smaller personal item bag that could be a purse, a small backpack, a fanny pack, or even a laptop case. Passengers are also often able to bring things like a jacket or a sun hat, and these are not going to count towards your carry-on allowance. However, the only thing that should be going in an overhead bin on the plane is going to be that large carry-on rolling suitcase or bag. Your jackets, hat, and personal item bag need to either stay with you in your seat, or you need to fit them underneath the seat in front of you. The second important, but also unfortunate, thing that you need to know about these overhead bins is that they are available to you on a first-come, first-served basis. It would be great if you were able to store your carry-on suitcase in the bin directly above your seat, but while your seat may be assigned, the bin space above it is not. In theory, any passenger seated anywhere on the plane can claim whatever available bin space they find. Let us know down in the comments if you think overhead bin space should be assigned. While assigned bin space sounds good to me, I also wouldn't be surprised if airlines started to charge passengers in order to reserve this space, which sounds less good to me. And a little bit more bad news for you. Not only is the overhead bin space not assigned, but there also is no guarantee that you will get any at all. There is not enough space for every passenger on a full flight to store a rolling carry-on bag in the overhead bin. The next important thing that every passenger should know about overhead bin space before flying is that it will be very difficult to access any items in the bin during the flight, especially if those items are sealed in a rolling carry-on suitcase. I mean, it's possible to get the items, but it's also frowned upon and can be quite dangerous. I've seen passengers attempt to get their carry-on suitcase out of an overhead bin mid-flight and then end up smacking another passenger in the head with their suitcase. And even if you do manage to get your suitcase down without smacking anyone in the head, there isn't really a convenient spot to open it up and pull something out without completely blocking the aisle for other passengers. Trying to open your suitcase in the aisle during a flight is not only a major fire hazard, but it's also very annoying for any flight attendants or other passengers that are trying to pass by. Prepare your luggage by packing your flight essentials in your personal item bag so that you can keep them with you at your seat and not have to try to get them from the overhead bin during the flight. The next thing to know about overhead bin space is that you are responsible for getting your carry-on suitcase both into it and out of it. This can be tricky, especially if you are on the shorter side, as it will require you to lift your bag over your head and into the bin. Asking a flight attendant to help you is typically a no-no, since they could end up injured and then in some trouble with the airline. Some flight attendants are even prohibited from helping passengers by their employers to mitigate the risk of injury. So you have 3 options here. Option 1 would be to lift your suitcase and put it into the bin all by yourself. Option 2, which many of us know all too well, is to struggle. My strategy is to lift the bag slightly above my shoulders and then lean it on the edge of the bottom of the overhead bin. Then use the power of my head to prop it up further and then reposition your arms into an overhead press position, at which point you can probably get the bag up into the bin. And if you can't, someone is probably going to help you at this point. And then there's option 3, which would be to look around and ask a strong-looking, tall passenger if they can help you with putting your suitcase into the bin. I probably should have started with option 3, but option 2 is so fun. Every passenger should also know that there is a correct way and an incorrect way to store your suitcase in the overhead bin. Putting your suitcase into the bin incorrectly may result in it not fitting or simply taking up than it should, which is not fair to other passengers. I should add that while there is a correct way and an incorrect way to store your carry-on suitcase, not everyone agrees on what the correct way actually is. So here is what I do, and it's most often what I see flight attendants around me doing as well. Place your suitcase wheels first into the bin so the handle is facing outwards towards you. It should also be on its side like a book on a bookshelf as opposed to flat lengthwise. And if you use this method and it still doesn't fit, don't force it. If you force it and you break the bin, you will instantly become the most hated person on the plane because a plane with a broken bin is not going anywhere. This next part might get me into a little bit of trouble down in the comments, but I stand by it. I mentioned at the beginning of this video that the best place to store your carry-on suitcase is going to be in the bin directly above your seat, or perhaps the bin above your seat and across from you. However, if that space is not available, the second best place to store your suitcase is going to be wherever the heck you can find a free spot, preferably in front of your seat as opposed to behind your seat. If you are making your way to your seat and you notice the bins around your seat area are closed, this usually indicates that those bins are already full. In a case like this, you will want to consider storing your suitcase in any open space available ahead of reaching your seat. If your suitcase is in a bin further up to the front of the plane from your seat, you can simply get off the plane when it's your turn to do so after landing, and then pick your suitcase up on the way out. But if you store your suitcase in a bin that is behind your seat, you will need to wait for all of the passengers behind you to get off the plane for you to then go back there, get your suitcase, and get off the plane yourself. That was a lot of hand movements, and I feel like it just made it more confusing. The next thing to know about the overhead bin space is that even if you find a space, you need to accept that your carry-on approved suitcase might not fit on that particular plane. The size and shape of the plane's overhead bin is going to vary slightly depending on the aircraft that you are on. You may find that short domestic flights, or flights with budget airlines, have smaller overhead bins in comparison to new, larger planes that are flying long-haul routes. Not all suitcases that are marketed to you as carry-on approved are going to fit in every plane's overhead bin space. Your carry-on should fit if it's 22 inches by 14 inches by 9 inches or smaller when you include the handle and the wheels, but it can be easy to overstuff a suitcase, especially if it has exterior pockets that you could fill, and then in this case, your carry-on approved suitcase may not fit in the bin at all. Travelers also need to know and prepare for a situation where there is no overhead bin space left for their suitcase, or for a situation where their suitcase doesn't fit. In a case like this, it will be checked, usually free of charge, by the airline. Unfortunately, this does mean that you are separated from your luggage and run the risk of things being damaged or delayed, and you'll usually need to head to the baggage claim area to wait for your bag to show up after the flight. I say usually because sometimes suitcases are gate checked, and then they're available to you as soon as you step off the plane before even leaving the jet bridge. Be sure to confirm with a flight attendant exactly where you will need to be to pick up your suitcase after the flight, and then also make sure that any valuables or essential items like your car keys, passport, or prescription medication are taken out of the suitcase and placed into your personal item bag, since you will want to keep these items with you at all times. The final and probably the most important thing to know about the overhead bin space is that the flight attendants are not trying to screw you over, and that they do want to work with you to fit as many bags as they possibly can in those overhead bins. But if there is no space left or your suitcase does not fit, there is no amount of arguing or negotiating that is going to change that. So don't be a jerk. Recognize that it's not that big of a deal, and then check the video linked down in the description with some of my favorite airplane hacks that are going to help you get the bin space the next time you fly. Safe travels, and see you back here soon. Bye.